Good afternoon. This is Patrick from the Poison Pen Bookstore in Scottsdale, Arizona. And I'm really delighted at long last, despite numerous scheduling snafus and Lynn's unending patience with me, to do this program with Lynn Kostoff. Remarkable writer. He's been on my radar for a long time, and we've had some sort of sporadic communication over the years. But he's just released a month or so ago, right, Lynn? This
July.
brand new book called The Length of Days. And folks, this is an extraordinary novel, published by House Press. Noir enthusiasts, you of course know them for reprinting, all these great writers, Peter Rabe,
Oh
uh,
yeah.
Gil Brewer,
Oh,
Harry
I love him.
Whittington,
Yeah.
all of our noir, the kind of the paperback noir writers that we all love that have fallen out of print. But Lynn, hey, thank you so much for
I
doing
sure
this
do
today.
appreciate this.
Yeah,
Good seeing you again.
it's wonderful to see you.
Same
Um,
here.
yeah, we were just talking a little bit before we went live here, um, about your career, Lynn. I mean, your first novel came out, The Choice of Nightmares, and you said 1991.
1991.
Right. And then I first became aware of you with your book, The Long Fall, which came out in the early aughts, right?
Yeah, 2003.
Okay. And then since then, can you kind of, what have you published since then leading up to The Length of Days?
Well, I wrote another one, Words to Die For. It came out from New Pulp Press in 2014.
Right.
And in the meantime, Choice of Nightmares and Long Fall were reissued. Uh, One, The Long Fall by Tyrus and Choice of Nightmares by New Pulp Press. So, and in the meantime, I've just been writing and kind of hoping I would hear
Let's
some good
not
news from publishers.
let's not forget this great book,
Okay, sorry. 2012, no, 2010.
2012. And this was a selection, I don't know if you remember, of
I,
the hard-boiled
I do.
crime
That was a
club.
very, very good thing. I appreciated it.
Yeah, so we go back a little ways. But boy, let's get into this book. Um, tell me, it's yeah, it's the book resonated with me on so many different levels. It's this wonderful kind of ensemble cast, set in Magnolia Beach,
Mhm.
South Carolina. Can you just kind of maybe talk a little bit about the book, what it's about, and then we'll kind of dig in a little bit deeper.
Okay. I have an odd kind of working thing. The genesis of the book was the first chapter. I just sat down one day and I wrote that chapter out. And by the time I was done, I had a retired steel mill worker, a setting, Magnolia Beach, South Carolina, a murder. You met the killer briefly, and you had 12 women locked in a house set on fire. And then I had absolutely no idea what I was going to do. I set that aside, and then I have this, for lack of a better word, what I call auditions. For probably the next 6 or 8 months, I just developed a whole range, 12 characters. I gave them their backstories, family history, occupations, and I made sure each of them had a particular personal problem. And then I went through the 12 and I picked out the other 5 and just dropped them in there, trusting that sooner or later, like regular people, they would surprise me, make connections, do things that all of a sudden I wanted the dual focus where they would have to resolve to some degree their personal problem, but also find out that their lives were inadvertently and elliptically connected to the others, and they had ties to every one of them is touched by the killer in some way. But I didn't. I trusted them to basically show me where it was. So the first draft was just pure discovery. I wrote it all out. Um, it's a short novel now, but I ended up, by the time I got to the final draft, cutting close to 200 pages. so almost half the length. But one of my favorite Robert Frost quotes is, "No surprise for the writer, no surprise for the reader."
Yeah.
And that's part of why I love writing, is just that sense of, I thought, man, I got all these balls in the air. I got to somehow keep them there and get them landed safely.
So you started with the Samuel Fulton character.
Right. And that was all I had for a long time. And then I just sort of trusted my intuition. It's what you had brought up. I just wanted a range of characters because I just had that idea, like I loved the way all their personalities and problems played off each other.
Yeah, and they're all, I mean, they're all such human characters. I mean, um, we could kind of go through them a little bit. Pam Graves is a young reporter who tells a little bit about her. They all have they're not exactly who that you think they are right away.
Yeah.
Like their first impression gives you a little bit, but then you dig under and these layers come out.
But yeah, she is someone who is the unfortunate type who wants to please everybody, who, as she says, she always puts the best face on the face of things. And of course, if you're going to write a noir, that is a perfect set. I knew something was going to happen to her, where
Right.
she was going to discover the best face on the face of things wasn't really the best face. And she just blunders into having to be on the scene at the house fire when the women are there. And she's just totally over her head because her job is not an investigative reporter, it's doing fluff pieces. Bake sales, charity drives, all that. And because the investigative reporter for the station is pregnant, she has to fill in for her, and that becomes the catalyst for all her life changes.
Right. Right. She reports on the scene and well, maybe I shouldn't go into it, but yeah. And then
So
there's
I thought that was kind of a logical outgrowth when I was picking the characters. I thought, okay, you got everything established in chapter one. That would be a natural thing for her to be ended up being the investigative reporter. But that sort of reluctant heroine, she gets pulled in way, way over her head.
right. And she has this kind of schlub sort of boyfriend who's really not, not she's not super committed to it, doesn't seem.
Yeah, he's kind of the ultimate slacker on his best
Yeah,
days.
right. Um, and then let's see, we have a fascinating character, Johnny Doc Newell.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
yeah, who was Nguyen, what was his real name again?
Oh, shoot, you dry. I
I've,
forget.
I've
I
got it
got so
written
used
down
to
for
calling
you.
him Johnny Doc that I forgot.
Nguyen Duc Xuan, is that how you
Yes,
say it?
yes, yeah,
Anyway, he's from Vietnam, and towards the end of the war, he was thrown into a Viet Cong re-education camp.
yes.
Where
Yeah.
in the heck did you get that idea from?
Um, what I guess at bottom with all my characters, I always try to think of one really deep, abiding desire. And he wanted to be the consummate American businessman because he had a father figure, John Sloan, at the Colorado bar. He was sort of an expatriate. So Johnny Doc became Americanized very early on, and he thought he would go back to America. And unfortunately, Saigon fell and interrupted those things. So that was a big section that I cut because I had probably a good 70, 80 pages of how he got to America at Magnolia Beach. But he was the ultimate successful immigrant story. So, and he was fascinated with American culture. He was obsessed with Turner Classic Movies.
Right,
So,
he patterned his whole vibe after Cary Grant,
yes,
which I thought was great.
he thought Cary Grant was the ultimate in
I mean,
icons.
there's another guy who completely reinvented himself you know,
Yes.
Archibald, whatever his last name was,
Leach.
Leach, yeah, becomes Cary Grant, and this process of reinvention. Yeah,
And that was him. Johnny Doc got here and he very quickly learned the American way of cutting corners. Who do you pay off? And so, but there was his one chance to go legitimate, and it was 2008 did him in because the big investment in West Wind Estates went south, and that's when he got into trouble. And that was the only reason he happened to own the house that burned down, but it was the equivalent of an absentee landlord. He basically let human traffickers stay there while they moved them somewhere else and got paid. And he thought it was easy, quick money. No, his hands would be completely clean. And then, of course, after the fire, that turned out badly.
right, right. And so, you know, let's talk a little bit about Magnolia Beach, and sex trafficking and how that's, kind of a perfect milieu for that. It's all about, anonymity and transience, those sort of beach communities,
Yeah.
people coming in and out. Did you have to go down the rabbit hole and do some research on sex
Actually,
trafficking?
unfortunately, not very deeply because my wife and I live about 2 hours from Myrtle Beach and the grandstand. So we spend a lot of time there, and that's pretty much common. I mean, you know about it. So it didn't take a lot of research to realize why the beach city or beach towns would work as a good noir setting. Because you have, well, the problem with beach towns is they don't make anything. So it's all tourist and glitz driven, and probably not, a huge percentage of the people who are service workers are transients.
Right,
Well,
right,
if
right.
you're gonna traffic humans, it's the easiest place to move them in and out.
Yeah, and it's a natural spot for runaways
Yeah,
and people trying to make it in the kind of fringes of fringe
yeah.
economy.
And it's interesting you brought that up because Broken Hymns, the novel coming out by Shotgun Honey, is a companion. They were two people that I cut from Length of Days, and
Oh,
she's in
really?
Runaway, and her father eventually goes after her, trying to get her back,
Okay.
and runs into all kinds of jams. But she runs to Magnolia Beach and ends up in with the same kind of crowd.
Yeah, my wife and I we watch a lot of true crime stuff. It's just a kind of a guilty pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a lot of those, the like serial killers operating along beach towns, we've noticed. There's quite a precedent for that.
Yeah, because there's always this, and again, I love the idea of discrepancies. There's always a discrepancy between the way the Tourist Bureau markets
Sure.
it and the reality. And
Of
they're
course.
oftentimes completely at odds with each other.
That's right.
So
Yeah,
again, that kind of just feeds the kind of noir vibe very easily to have that kind of stuff built into it.
right. Um, let's see. And then we got to talk about your cop, Carl Adkin. Um, what a character, and his whole philosophy I found fascinating. The whole thing about slots. You have this
Mhm.
recurring riff in the book about slots, and also how I think it's slots and favors are the two
Yes,
things, the two
yes.
things that kind of make the whole thing go together.
Okay, sorry. Oh,
That's okay. You're there.
okay, somebody tried to interrupt there, so that's okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I didn't expect anybody to remember, but there was a slight in joke with Carl because he was a minor character in Late Rain. He was the one who was always getting under Ben Dukovic's skin because Ben Dukovic couldn't stand bent cops. So he was always having a run in. He was a minor character that had two or three little scenes with him. And I was
I
just,
did not remember that. I'm gonna have to go back and look at that.
well, there's the scene where that cop early on puts the ice pick in Ben Dickovic's tire to
Okay.
explain why he did. That was Carl. So Carl, and there's a scene late in the book where Ben goes to Carl's house and confronts him about his corruption, and he just laughs him off. So I always thought that Carl was worth a little bit more exploration, but I also wanted him to be kind of weirdly sympathetic because I mean everything, all his corruption is just tied to providing for his family.
Mhm.
He doesn't really take anything for himself.
Yeah, I mean all the characters in the book, are just really trying to get by,
Mm-hmm.
to get by in certain ways. And there's the classic line they kind of come to, and some of them slip across real fast, others dip a toe in.
Yeah.
Um, but no, they're all really human characters. So yeah, Carl, tell us a little bit more about him. Uh,
Well, it's like I said, he's one of the kind of the flip side of Pam Graves because he's very comfortable in his skin and in his lifestyle, and it makes him too complacent, and he doesn't realize until way, way too late in the book the cost because he just sees it as sort of PG corruption. It's just enough to buy his wife the refrigerator, to buy his kid an ATV, and he thinks it doesn't have any consequences. And until all of a sudden everything lines up and he finds himself horribly compromised. And to get out of it, he has to do probably the most horrific act he'll ever imagine in his life.
right, right. And that's kind of the part, I do a just discussion group at the bookstore and have done for about 25 years now. And it's devoted to hard-boiled and noir literature. And we've spent 25 years trying to define what noir is. Um, but what you're just discussing is sort of seems like kind of a classic noir setup, you
Yeah,
know?
I've always seen noir basically as desire. I want to make sure every one of my characters wants something. And the problem is, the moment you say, I want, the next breath, corruption sets in
Mhm.
because it's how far are you willing to go? What happens if you chase your desires and get it and don't realize it's not what I wanted? What happens if you can't get it? So to me, I've always seen sort of desire as the engine of noir.
Definitely. And you see the riff of yeah, if I can just do this last big score,
Yeah.
then I'll get out of the game and everything will be great. And
Yeah.
you
Well,
know,
and he's a sad case. He's probably the classic noir protagonist. In Choice of Nightmares, a guy throws out his whole life in order to be a movie star. He thinks he's been in B movies. He thinks he's going to have this big break. And the sad case is he can't act. And it takes the whole book for him to realize he's thrown his whole life away and there's a trail of bodies behind him because he wanted to play in something besides grade B horror movies.
well, and that I mean therapy sessions by the minute are full of that story.
Yes.
People are always wrestling with identity and things like that. I wanted, I can be happy if I
Mhm.
achieve
Yes. The
this,
big if.
if I have, the perfect relationship, if I, you know,
And our culture, unfortunately, feeds itself very full on that.
sure does. So let me see if I can find it in the book. The whole business of Carl's the cops, his worldview as it relates to slots. Everybody has a slot to fill. Um, we don't have to go too far into that, but can you just kind of talk about that, where that sort of comes from?
Yeah, I was just trying to find a way to characterize that sort of easy complacency that is very, very dangerous. And his idea of a slot is once you find it, you know who you are, what you are, and your place in the world. And you let your guard down. And that's when life or fate comes in and crushes you.
Okay. Yeah, right here I found it. It says at bottom, what's a slot? Something that needs filled, something waiting to be filled. A day is a slot, so is a life. Carl likes the idea, the comfort and shape of it, that the world is full of slots, and all you have to do is find yours and inhabit it to be content and for things to make sense. You find your slot and fill it, and then it goes on and fills you. You know who you are. Um, and there's a lot of rationalization on what Carl's actually doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It says, let's see, you know who you are, and Carl does. He's a cop, husband, and father. He may do a little freelance work for people like Johnny Doc Newell, maybe providing some helpful info or applying a little pressure in the right places. But he keeps his greed in check and focused. He doesn't overreach. And of course, at the bottom of all this is 12 dead
yes,
teenage girls,
yes,
and he's connected to that, although he rationalizes the hell out of it.
yeah,
I didn't really do anything. I'm on the periphery. Someone's got to make a little money off of this,
yeah.
and it's
It's like you used that for earlier favors. It's just, he sees everything as, oh, do a couple favors and you get rewarded in return. So it's that, yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
And that's the perfect setup for the noir because Pam Graves doesn't know who she is and has to discover who she is. He thinks he does know who he is and discovers he doesn't at all. So it's kind of, he's the flip side of her in terms of the way the plot line goes.
So they should definitely get together as a couple in the sequel, right? It could happen.
It
Uh,
may,
that
stranger
would
things happen.
that would actually be pretty interesting. But then you've got, it's remarkable what you do in such a relatively short amount of space. These characters, and it's interesting hearing that the director's cut of the book
Mhm.
where it has a lot more material.
Yes.
That's interesting. Um, but this
Like I
other
said, I
character,
cut probably the equivalent of the same length, almost 200 pages.
is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
But that's the one thing that I feel very fortunate about. I've been doing this long enough. Ego is set aside. I mean, my favorite part is getting to revise and edit because I'll hack it apart. And I mean, there were sections I really loved, but it just,
Didn't serve the story.
yes, no. And part of the fun was in that final draft, just going through there and being very quickly able to say, this goes, I keep this. And all kinds of weird connections came up because I did that.
Mm. Yeah, I mean it's a relatively small community, right? I
Yeah.
mean, so yeah. Um, and then the whole situation, well, I mean, the whole situation at the retirement home
Mm-hmm.
area and the nursing home, um, where Arturo Morales comes into the picture, and he's another really human character, a
Thank you.
romantic, you know.
Yes.
Tell us about him and how he fits in.
Well, he was kind of a foil to Johnny Doc because both of them were chasing the American dream, but where Johnny Doc was willing to be very ruthless and sought upwardly mobile, he just wanted a piece of the pie. He was a decent man who worked hard and thought, if I do this, things should work out. And of course, they don't.
And
But that,
he also has this, love for a fair lady that he lost.
yes, yes,
And that
that is his other problem because, um, and it was not by accident that it turned out he lost that woman because the man who stole her from him was a successful businessman who went to her family and played on traditional values and
Mhm.
basically got an arranged marriage.
Right.
So it was that idea that he lost her to, again, American capitalism, the business, and all that.
And the husband's not a good guy.
No, not really. You know, I think his crowning achievement is franchises. He has some kind of burgers and beer franchises,
Right.
and he likes to throw his money around and
Yeah, for
cut
sure.
the image there.
Um, it's in the Arturo kind of section where the whole favors thing comes into it.
Yes.
I was thinking it was Carl, but I looked back and it was actually Arturo's insight. See if I can find it. Yeah. Well, it doesn't matter. I mean, he just kind of muses that the whole fabric is of society is glued together by these, series of favors you make to so and so, to here, to there, to there.
And that was, again, one of the surprises for me, and hopefully for the reader, because I didn't realize at the time, but that he was doing favors for Carl.
Mhm.
So that was one of the first ways I thought, okay, I can see how you can tell these stories and still find ways where they don't mechanically connect. And it was really fun to have that scene where he runs into Carl, and Carl, basically says, you did what you were supposed to.
Yeah. There's a wonderful detail with Arturo because he's a man that has his toe in many different camps,
Mm-hmm.
and how he what is it? He's swapping old VHS porn tapes
Yes,
for Oxy that, and I think it's a nurse is
yes,
harvesting one pill at a time, and I just love
yes.
those details.
But he's also the sort of man that takes buffing floors seriously because you do your job, you do it right, and you take care of people. So I mean, there's that real. In many ways, he could be Samuel Fulton's son with his work ethic,
Mhm.
but because he lives in the world of Magnolia Beach, unfortunately, he deals with Carl and everyone else. The favors start piling up.
Right. There's a yeah. Okay, so I'll there's just one thing I wanted to bring up to you,
Sure,
that where I just wrote when I first read it, I just wrote wow, which is for all of you following along at home. It's on page 117, and it kind of what I thought was sort of the dark beating pulse of the book, where the Bowen brothers enter into this equation, of course, um, and it's when the Bowen brothers and Johnny Doc are having a little exchange. And it said the Bowen brothers had interrupted him mid-sentence. Not women, they'd say. We're talking merchandise, barcodes with a pulse. Johnny Doc had started to object, but stopped. He understood. He understood, however, in a way that the Bowen brothers never could. Colonel Levanthu had seen to that. And over the next hour, Johnny Doc Newell sits behind the wheel of the SUV and watches a line of men enter and leave the full moon. This is the massage kind of parlor that he runs. They are men who have run out of faces. They've lost them to loneliness, blind need, or desperation. They are men who are now as generic as motels, fish sandwiches, constellations without stories, and barcodes with a pulse. Um, right now, the view on the other side of the SUV's windshield holds the truth behind the truth, the one that resides at the core of the universe, that there's always something inviolate, irreconcilable, and unjustifiable, a lump of truth that is indigestible, some black hole where all ethical distinctions collapse upon themselves, revealing something finally appalling and indefensible at its own core. The equivalent of what happens when, I should have you read this, the equivalent of what
do
happens
fine.
when God blinks. And in that long moment, morality and anything resembling judgment or justice absolutely disappears. And what you're left with in that long moment is simply the zero gravity of your own heartbeat and the full moon massage parlor and the women working there and the men who pass through its doors. Wow. What a, that's it. That's it right there.
That it's interesting that that's the passage because when I got to that one, all I did is sat back and said, thank you. Because it really felt like I hit that was the heart of the book.
Do you think so? I mean,
Yeah, it
when I
was. It
read
was
that,
exactly because I thought to me, how reprehensible to traffic a human being. And I thought, well, if you call them barcodes with a pulse, it's very easy. It's just like I always remember from one of my favorite novels is Conrad's not Choice of Nightmares, Heart of Darkness,
yeah,
where as long as you call the natives rebels, you can do pretty much anything you want, or savages or rebels. Once you give them that term, you can do anything. And there
right,
was something to me, the idea that, that was what was under the sunshine, the seafood, the surf, all the tourist glitch. When you looked turned that over, what you saw was the full moon massage parlor there and what was going on.
right. And you see not the exact same story, but you see this dark, almost impersonal uh, element of chaos kind of underneath this, civilized, quote, civilized world.
And there was that sense too I wanted to evoke of him being lost because I thought when he talked about uh, he goes to a fast food restaurant, he gets a fish sandwich, and he doesn't even know what kind of fish it is. He looks at the sky, he sees constellations, but he doesn't understand the stories behind them. And I wanted just to kind of make that moment of when, unfortunately, when the forces collide, you are absolutely up against it. And that's
Yeah,
what I felt he was at that point.
right, right. So there you go, folks. I mean, we shouldn't get too much. I've already gotten pretty detailed into the book, but it's a remarkable novel. And let's just talk a little bit before I let you go about teaching. I know you've taught. Do you teach writing or do you teach
Yeah,
English?
I'm retired now.
Okay,
I taught college for 40 years. Um, my first job was at Indiana State University. Uh, and it so happened there was this guy named Larry Bird playing basketball there. And so for 2 years, I taught you. That was my first job. Then I taught 5 years at the University of Alabama, and then 32 years at Francis Marion University here in Florence, South Carolina. So I kind of wanted, Indiana State was a mid-sized school. I wanted to see that experience. I taught then at Alabama. I got the large one. But Francis Marion University is a really good little school. It's very blue collar, very first generation. And I just absolutely love teaching there. The only reason I retired after 40 years total, because for a lot of time, this is unfortunately too common a story. My parents started having health issues,
sure.
and they were 700 miles away, and trying to teach and cut back and forth just didn't work. So at that point, I decided to retire.
I see.
But I love teaching, and actually, some of my most pleasurable courses were teaching freshman composition because it was teaching people how to write. And there was something so powerful in that because most freshmen do not look forward to the freshman comp classes. And I really, really enjoyed trying to break that attitude down and let them, just the joy of being able to get your thoughts down and
Mm.
step back and own them.
Yeah, I know the Scottish writer Ian Rankin,
Oh,
great guy, wonderful writer. And I think he said something like, he found that, writing helped him kind of work out problems in his own mind, things that he didn't understand about the
yeah.
world. It was a way for him to work those things out on the page, with characters.
Yeah, I think what drew me to teaching so much too was it was a counterbalance to writing the novels where it's all yourself sitting in the room day in. It really was pleasurable to realize, it's a nice gift to hopefully teach someone the power of writing and for them to be able to own it, not just I do it, but that, and having that ability to get out there and do that meant a lot.
Did because obviously you've written in sort of the crime genre, if you will. Although some of those labels get irritating. I mean, they're just novels, right? I mean,
Yeah, that's yeah.
novels full of conflict and life and
Yeah.
death and all the important things. Um, but it was crime fiction still poo-pooed at universities, or is it
Not,
is it
no,
accepted more?
I think it's more accepted because I
That's
know,
good.
well, for one thing, we had a writers festival every year. I mean, one of the first people we brought down there was Megan Abbott,
Oh yeah,
and she was a huge hit. And we had Tobias Wolff there, and those. So the lines got definitely blurred, which I think is the healthiest.
definitely. Yeah, it seems like in lit, American lit classes, you should be teaching, Red Harvest. You should be teaching, The Big Sleep. You should be
Yeah,
teaching.
well, actually, that's weird that you brought that up because one of my best teaching experiences, I taught developmental composition, which was the course you had to take to get up to speed for college writing. And one of the textbooks I used was Devil in a Blue Dress by Mosley.
Yeah,
And I had students say, you know what? I'm going to tell you a secret. This is the first book I read all the way through. I never finished one in high school, but they loved that book. And it was just you had history, you had race relations, you had the genre elements, and it was a really, really good experience.
Mosley would be delighted to hear that.
Yes. Well,
Yeah,
I mean, it was one of those things I thought I'm going to take this, see how it flies, and I was really, really happy with how it did.
that's great.
The
Yeah,
other one that weirdly worked very well was Tom Perrotta's Bad Haircut about growing up in the 70s, the coming of age collected stories.
I've
And
never read that.
it's hilarious. It is
Really?
really, really good. And it was a wonderful counterpoint to whenever the year I was teaching. We had that
Mm.
back and forth thing. And it's wonderful, very underrated book.
What's it called?
A Bad Haircut.
All right. I've certainly had my share of those.
Well, I did when I had hair. I haven't had to worry about that one for a while.
Right. So let's talk a little bit, and then I don't want to keep you too long. I know you have a schedule, but let's
That's
talk a little
fine.
bit. Let's talk a little bit about your own kind of literary tastes, and who's influenced you over the years.
Um, the last year and a half, I don't know, it might be a function of age and just being retired. I've been revisiting a lot of writers that I once really admired and loved. Um,
That's dangerous.
yes, but I've been pretty lucky. I love Graham Greene. So I've
Oh,
been reading Graham Greene, um,
what's your favorite?
Brighton Rock,
Yeah,
Brighton Rock, and The Power and the Glory. I think are my two favorites.
I would probably say Brighton Rock definitely up there. Quite American.
Oh yeah, oh I did teach that. That's right. I would put those are probably my top three favorites of his.
Yeah. Although it
Um,
makes me want to smoke opium.
that was, and also that was a wonderful novel. And I also went back and I think a guy who was uneven but very, very underrated was Newton Thornburg.
Oh my God, yes,
I love
absolutely.
his stuff. Some of his stuff I'm back and forth on, but when he was cooking, he was wonderful. And
To
I
Die in California,
yeah,
Cutter
and
and Bone,
yeah, and also a
Black
very
Angus.
yeah, that's the one I was going to say. People don't pay attention to it. Well, I thought Black Angus was a really interesting one.
Yeah, I have
And
that on my shelf.
it was hard to read, but Beautiful Kate was powerful.
I haven't read that.
That's the one about an incestuous relationship, and they they made an Australian film based on it, same
Really?
title. And it's really interesting, but it's hard read. I mean, it's really, he wrote, I think that may have been his next to the last book, and it's really, really dark. But let's see, I like William Trevor. I've been reading a lot of William Trevor stories. Um, I discovered a writer named Lucia Berlin, a manual
Yeah.
for cleaning women.
Oh
I
yeah.
really like her stuff.
Manual for Cleaning Women. Is that the one?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
she's an amazing.
And Edna O'Brien,
Yep.
a lot of fun.
We're on the same
Um,
page.
let's see. Uh, I wish he wrote more. I love Kent Anderson.
Me too.
He's one of my favorites, and I always wished he was writing more.
I think he
Um,
wrote probably the great Vietnam novel, and
yeah,
nobody recognizes
yeah.
it.
Sympathy for the
Symphonies.
Devil and Night Dogs too. Night
Yeah,
Dogs is probably one of the best post-Vietnam, and he
for
doesn't
sure.
often get included in the post-Vietnam writing group. But man, that's a book that sticks with you.
Oh God.
Really, really does.
Well, it's
Um,
probably because of the ending.
yes, been long time fan of Thomas McGuane and Jim Harrison.
Sure.
Been reading a lot of them. Um,
Are you influenced by Charles Willeford at all?
I like his stuff a lot.
Okay.
Um, there was one point I think The Woman Chaser was one of my all-time favorite novels because that one is just so far out there. And but I do like his stuff a lot.
Yeah.
Let me see. Oh, Dorothy Hughes.
We're doing The Fallen Sparrow tomorrow night for my book
Oh,
group.
really?
Yeah, we've done a
Okay.
bunch of her books.
Yeah, I like. Again, I'm glad she's still in print and getting noticed. So,
I think In a
um,
Lonely Place is the one.
yeah,
That's the great a great equally up there with Chandler and the greats
yeah,
of LA.
yeah. So a lot of those, James Salas, again,
Mm,
what we were talking about earlier, definitely him. So a lot of a lot of rereading. A very underrated writer, even though he was well known, is I have always had a soft spot for John Gregory Dunn's True Confessions.
oh my God, we're like
That
brothers
book to
here.
me is picked. I mean, that is one of those novels where you go, man, if I wrote that, if that was the only one I wrote, I would say I would be a happy fellow. That is
It's
just perfect.
stunning. It really is. I mean, yeah. Did you see the film version of it?
Yes, yes,
And the two brothers, it's like either one of those actors were so good that they could have played the other's
exactly, exactly.
role. But
Yep.
the dialogue in that book, is just incredible.
And he could be self-indulgent, but man, with that one, the stars aligned for him because that's just one that and like Dog Soldiers are probably two of my favorite novels. I mean, I got to meet Stone a couple times, and it meant a lot to me. I love Stone stuff.
Yeah. Gosh, Lynn, we're on the same page, man. I love all that stuff too. Um,
But it's like you were saying, the lines are blurred. I mean, I don't care what genre you put any of those in. It's just good writing.
yeah. Have you ever read, I mean, since we're just having fun, have you ever read Fat City by Leonard Gardner?
Oh man, that every year I I've probably read that 20 times. It's just again, it's like True Confessions. It's that one book you think if that's the only one I wrote, I would be happy because that there is something. And the movie version, the Houston version, is also excellent.
It's good, yeah. I
And,
had I met Leonard at Eddie Muller's uh,
oh,
house once. This is quite a while ago now, but it was when Eddie was hosting one of the Noir film festivals, and Leonard's a friend of his, and so I got a chance to talk to him for quite a
oh,
while, and
that book is just it's amazing.
it
It
is,
really, really is.
yeah, yeah. Well, shoot. Let me go ahead and sign off here for everybody, but
Okay,
yeah, it's really been a delight talking with you, Lynn.
same here.
We could go into much more, but for all of you watching, go out and I was going to say beg, borrow, or steal a copy. No, please buy copies so that Lynn gets a few dimes. This is a terrific book, and deserves a wide audience. Um, Although it's probably too quirky and weird for mass consumption, but I don't think so. I think it's a great literary novel.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks so much, Lynn.